Hello everybody and welcome to the very first episode of the Film Freaks podcast, the latest form in cinephile entertainment that's put on by yours truly, Tyler Christian from CaliCriticReviews, as I bring on a movie-related fanboy every week to discuss the latest movie news, trailers, films, sneak peeks, and so much more. And to kick off this very first episode, I have a very good friend of mine with me, and that is Teddy Silva, aka Reviews by Ted.
Hey, what's up everybody?
And if you're new to this show, we break this into several different segments in which we call them the Hollywood 3, which is where we break down 3 of the biggest movie news that came out of Hollywood, in which the biggest ones we break down whether they're good for it or bad, if it's a movie in production, the aftermath of release, and so much more. Then we move on to Trailer Talk, which is reviewing the latest trailers that have come out in the past week. And then we move on to something occasionally here and there. This will only happen once or twice a month, and that is called the Film Freak Sneak Peek, where we talk about movies upcoming either in the next month or even just a film festival or award show in general as we preview those. And then we finish it off with what we like to call Rate the Release, which we review the latest movies to release in the past weekend. But we're not going to do it this time. This is a special episode. Given that this is the first one and the Cannes Film Festival is only a few days away from us on this coming Wednesday, we're going to preview some of the biggest movies that are going to be shown there, in addition to the biggest independent movies releasing this year as well. So without further ado, we're going to start off with the Hollywood 3, in which we're going to talk about the 3 biggest news stories to come out of Hollywood this week. And this first one is Joss Whedon's, which he wrote a letter to his fans. For those of you who don't know, he of course directed The Avengers and wrote it. And if you did not know about that, then where the hell have you been in the past 2 weeks or so? And after the release, and its over $200 million plus box office opening on its first weekend of release, he wrote a letter thanking his fans, and also taking the time to use his classic sense of humor by intentionally self-deprecating himself in the process. So what was your reaction to this, Teddy?
Well, I actually haven't even heard of it. I didn't know.
Oh, you really didn't?
No, what exactly did he say to him?
Well, if you didn't know, he has a very devoted fan base. In fact, he has an entire website on the internet devoted from his fans, which they just praise his work all the time. And I don't blame him, because I have seen several of his works besides The Avengers, even The Cabin in the Woods. I know that you've seen that, of course, too. And the reason he wrote a letter, though, is because he's really had a very tumultuous career. As much success as he has enjoyed from his TV shows, he just really hasn't gotten the right treatment from them, as several of them just haven't lasted long enough than they really should have. And the fact that he got this opportunity to take on The Avengers, which is something that not many other filmmakers really get at all, and that he pretty much knows by now that his career is really going to take a huge spike after this, in which he's going to receive offers left and right. He's really getting the recognition from the mainstream cinema and even just mainstream entertainment as it is today. And I think that it was just a really good time for him just to thank everyone because of how many bumps he's had in his career left and right, and I felt like it was a great way to repay them. Yeah,
it's really cool that he did that. I like Joss Whedon. I haven't seen all of this stuff, but I enjoyed The Avengers a lot. I think it's a little overrated.
Well, a hype had a lot to do with that.
Oh, yes. I don't think it's one of the best superhero movies ever made. I loved Cabin in the Woods.
Yeah, so did I. That's still my favorite movie of the year so far, too.
Say it's my second favorite, behind The Gray. But I really think that he's just awesome. He's so cool. And I don't know, he said that he's like, why is there, he even said, I don't know if you heard, but he's like, why is there a war between The Avengers and The Dark Knight Rises? I'm going to go see The Dark Knight Rises, and I directed The Avengers. So, stop fighting over it.
Yeah, well, he's always got to have a sense of humor no matter what he deals with, and that's why I really like Whedon, because he's never afraid to crack humor, even in the most serious situations.
Yeah.
Alright, now moving on from that, another big news story that hit Hollywood was in casting news. As many of you know, Iron Man 3 is going into production very soon in North Carolina, I presume. But they've had trouble casting the second lead female star in this role of a sexy scientist that rivals Tony Stark's work, or goes alongside with him as like an ally. I'm not really sure. I haven't done my research there, so call me a noob for that. But Jessica Chastain was originally offered this role, but she had to drop out because she has an extremely busy schedule ahead of her, given that she had a real breakout year last year. And replacing her this time, which I think is a great choice, is Rebecca Hall, who starred in The Prestige and The Town, and also in Woody Allen's Vicky Cristina Barcelona.
I like Rebecca Hall, but to just confirm, I've read the comics, and I'm pretty sure Iron Man 3 is based off of Extremis. In fact, that's pretty much been confirmed. Basically, this character is like a rival dash love interest to Tony Stark.
Alright, so I had it right on the rival side then.
Yeah, pretty much.
You know, I find her better casting than Jessica Chastain too, because as great as an actress Jessica Chastain has established herself over the years, I just don't really think that she would have netted down the role as well, just from picturing her in the first place. I think Rebecca Hall, though, she's much more well suited this because she has a great range in their acting as well. But I think that her physical attributes really access to this role more than Chastain would have.
Yeah, although I do really like Jessica Chastain. I thought she was great in Take Shelter and Tree of Life.
Yeah, and that will something involving Take Shelter will also be brought up later in another segment. And also, we're going to move on to the last of the Hollywood Three, which this is a very big one for a lot of cult fan bases across the world. And that, if you're familiar with the Cornetto trilogy, which also known as the Blood and Ice Cream trilogy by Edgar Wright, Simon Pegg, and Nick Frost, they officially made the announcement that their long-awaited third and final edition of the trilogy, The World's End, has the script finished, and they are set to begin filming this fall, and they're going to release it in spring of 2013.
That makes me so happy.
I've
been waiting.
Yeah, you're a big Edgar Wright fan for that, though, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm not huge about Scott Pilgrim, but I love the Cornetto trilogy.
Yeah, what's your favorite of them?
Shaun of the Dead.
Alright, now I want your input on this, because even though this is really big for the diehard fans of this trilogy alone, there are a lot of people that are also mad about this too, because Edgar Wright has been long attached to writing and directing the Ant-Man movie, and a lot of Marvel fans have really been anticipating this for a while. In fact, back at Comic-Con last year, he announced that he and Joe Cornish, who made the highly critically acclaimed Attack of the Block, they both announced that they had turned in the second draft of the script. But now with this announcement in key, how is this going to affect Ant-Man, though?
I don't think there's been any problems with Ant-Man. I think it's just going to be probably pushed back a little bit.
Yeah, how long do you think it would be pushed back, though?
I don't know.
Well, if you want my guess, since they're going for a release with The World's End, for instance, in spring of next year, I have a feeling that given that they have enough time up through the release of that is where they can finalize the script for Ant-Man and so forth, and also go into casting as well. So I'm presuming that Ant-Man won't get released until 2014 or so. And I will admit, like, I'm really looking forward to the Ant-Man adaptation, but really anything that's made by Edgar Wright these days, I'll just pay the ticket alone. So I'm not too pissed about the Ant-Man movie really being pushed, because I've been waiting a while for the Cornetto trilogy to finally come to a close, because it's easily one of the greatest cult trilogies out there, and it also shows that British people still kick our ass in terms of comedy. So I'm really looking forward to it no matter what.
I think that when I first heard about Ant-Man, I was thinking, what if it was Edgar? What if that was the final Wright, Frost, Pegg movie? Like, what if they did a superhero movie?
You know, I've kind of wondered about that too, actually. Now, that would be a pretty cool parody right there, because especially within this day and age where comic book movies have literally become a huge symbol for Hollywood, that would be actually perfect timing to do that, maybe as a follow-up project after Ant-Man's finished.
Yeah.
Who knows, they can maybe start another trilogy out of that then.
Yeah, but I'm so happy that World's End is finally happening. I've been waiting since I first saw Hot Fuzz, which I love to death.
So you're saying that you love Hot Fuzz more than Shaun of the Dead then, right?
No, I love Shaun of the Dead, like, to extreme death, and Hot Fuzz to less extreme death.
Yeah, I just have to rewatch both of those because I haven't seen either of those movies in a while. I still love watching clips off of them off YouTube all the time whenever I get the chance to, but I'll definitely give those two the rewatches they deserve before the World's End releases because I'm really looking forward to this.
The thing I'm kind of wondering about World's End is, like, it's happening so soon. Like, I was expecting a 2014 release. The fact that it's coming early 2013 surprises me.
But keep in mind, a spring 2013 release for now, that's just as vague as they get because it's not really a definitive certification yet for a given day. So at least we have that because keep in mind, Edgar Wright is a guy that he can film things on a very fast schedule though too. So I won't be surprised if it is turned out pretty good.
Oh, okay. I don't really know much about his schedule, like how he makes movies and like how long it takes him.
Well, if you look at his style on camera, though, you probably wouldn't be surprised, though.
Yeah, that's true.
Because
I actually made a fake Criterion cover of Hot Fuzz.
Oh yeah, I remember that too. You know, in fact, that's as odd as they get for when people make fake Criterions for movies that must be part of the collection. But you know, I'd literally go as far as saying that the Cornetto trilogy alone should be put together in one giant Criterion collection. Now that would be really cool.
And just have all covers be of the different ice creams.
Yeah, and then just put blood on the last one or something like that then.
Yeah, I hear World's End, the ice cream, is going to be like a mint.
Oh, nice.
And what that makes me think is mint ice cream's usually green. So, green environmental disaster, maybe, in the plot.
Yeah, that could be interesting because that's a subject that's been touched upon for a while too.
Yeah. So I'm so excited for that movie.
Yeah, so far that and The Counselor are my most anticipated movies for 2013. It's a no contest between those two so far.
Yeah, mine are Zend and Elysium.
Elysium? Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Neil Blomkamp's newest movie. I'm hoping they release something for that soon because all that they have for that so far is set photos.
I hope. What would maybe be the next movie they show the trailer for that? Maybe with.
Well, it doesn't release till next summer, so we could possibly expect something in like late winter or early spring, most likely.
Mm.
All right, so now that finishes. Wait, what did you say?
It comes out March 1st next year.
Oh, so late winter probably then.
Probably.
Well, this one's more higher budget than District 9 is too, so I wouldn't be surprised if they hold off on the trailer for a little while more.
Yeah.
At least they could start the teaser soon, though.
Yeah. I'd like to.
Alright, now we're moving on. There's the Hollywood 3 right there. In case we missed any other big news announcements, don't be free to leave one of those in the comments box below, and one of us will respond to that, of course. But now we move on to our next segment. That is Trailer Talk, in which we break down the latest trailers that have released in the past week. And this is a really big week for trailers, if you ask me. There have been a lot of big ones for very anticipated movies later this year that released. And the first one we're going to go over is the first official trailer for Ruben Fleischer's The Gangster Squad.
This looks so good. It looks so good.
Care to elaborate past that's so good?
Well, I will be honest. I have a man crush on Ryan Gosling.
Oh, who doesn't have a man crush on Ryan Gosling? Well, for me, on the other hand, I think that this looks really good. I already know someone that saw it as well, and he did say it was minorly disappointing. Yet, for some reason, I know a lot of people are all hyped up over it because of the cast. The one thing that I'm going to predict, though, and it's no offense to you or anyone else that's really been a huge fan of the trailer, I just don't think it looks like the Oscar contender it's making itself out to be, though.
See, that's my thing. I don't really see it looking like an Oscar contender. I just think it looks like an awesome crime movie.
Yeah, and it looks stylized, too. It looks like Ruben Fleischer, he's really trying to find his niche in Hollywood because he's made 3 different movies of 3 different styles, too. It looks like he's going back to try and mash up a few genres in this one, but nowhere as much as he attempted to in either Zombieland or not even in 30 Minutes or Less, because that was something he tried to experiment something different, yet I really didn't like 30 Minutes or Less. That was a huge disappointment. But on the other hand, he's got a lot of fans based off of Zombieland. If he can deliver with this, then he's sure to get even more fans out of it, and he could be a huge director to be reckoned with in the future because he really set himself back with 30 Minutes or Less.
Yeah, I didn't see that, but I want to.
Well, it's a rental at best. Just I wasn't really a fan of it. I think it's because I anticipated it so much, though, too. All right, so now...
Sorry.
What were you at?
I actually read a comment on the trailer for it on YouTube, and someone said it looks kind of like Inglourious Basterds, but with gangsters.
Really?
That's kind of an interesting take.
Yeah, that is an interesting take. I don't know if I'd fully agree with that take right there, but it is interesting to say the least. I'll say that I did enjoy the trailer, just it looks more like a stylized entertainment film, and it does look a little Hollywoodized if you ask me, but I will not lie that it does look amazing, especially within the technicality, especially for the way that they designed the early 1900s LA, the cars, the costumes, and so much more. So I'm looking forward to this movie. I'm just not really highly anticipating it, but I thought the trailer did its job, and it's got me intrigued to say the least, so I give it a solid 3.5 out of 5. What would you give it?
I'd give it a 4.5. I think I didn't like the song that they played.
Oh yeah, I didn't like that either. That's one thing that doesn't mix well with me for trailers, in which they put a song that's way more relevant with today, and it really has nothing to do with the time period that the movie's really set in.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't like the song.
Yeah, me neither. Alright, so moving on, our next trailer is Ben Affleck's latest directorial effort, Argo, which this movie is set against the Iranian Revolution of the late 70s, and it's set against also the Iranian hostage crisis that happened, and Ben Affleck plays this CIA agent who teams up with a plan in order to disguise him and several other agents as this fake movie crew, making this fake movie called Argo, in which they go location scouting, which their real intention is to use that as their cover-up in order to help free these hostages amidst the revolution happening. And I was a fan of Ben Affleck's The Town. Even though I think it's slightly overrated, it's still a very good film. I unfortunately have only seen half of Gone Baby Gone, and I kind of regret saying that because I could have finished the movie, yet I was so tired when I watched it for the first time a while ago. But from what I saw, it was very intriguing, and Ben Affleck's really established himself as a really good director of today. So what did you think of this trailer?
I know a lot of people who think it looks amazing. I can't say that I think it looks like an amazing movie, but I am very excited for it. I think it looks really good.
Yeah, everyone can at least admit that the casting for this movie is very strong, especially for the fact that Ben Affleck, he's really hit or miss, but in his last feature, which he did The Town, his acting wasn't really that bad in it. It actually fit the aesthetic that the movie was going for. However, for this, it looks like he's kind of doing the same thing. I didn't really find any problems with his acting in the trailer alone, but what really got me was the cast that they have alongside him, which is Bryan Cranston, which that guy has been long deserving of a starring role in a long time, because ever since his success on Breaking Bad, which is one of my absolute favorite television shows of all time, he just really has been stuck with these side character roles that have really not done anything big for the movie in general. Like, even in John Carter, which I enjoyed his role for like the 5 minutes that he was in, yet it just wasn't enough, really. And that's really how I felt with all of his movies in the past. Well, the ones that he's starring, for that matter. But for this, it looks like he's finally utilizing his talent because he has a lot of great range within his acting. And also, there's Kyle Chandler, John Goodman, and Alan Arkin, and many others in this film. I just think it's going to be a really good acting ensemble. Everything else is left to be determined, but I was really entertained by it, to say the least.
Yeah, I was entertained by the trailer. Again, I love Bryan Cranston. I thought he was great in Drive. Like,
yeah, me too.
Wasn't he in Contagion for like 3 seconds?
Yeah, I remember his scene too. Like, he wasn't in it for that long, but you can just really tell he plays each role he approaches very subtly, and I think that's what's so good about his acting.
I hated that movie.
Yeah, I remember.
Anyways, I'm definitely excited for Argo, but I can't say I'm like dying for it to come out soon.
So what would you give it though?
3.5. I thought for some reason like it started off serious, then all of a sudden the middle of the trailer became like a comedy.
Well, it's not really trying to go full out on that, though, but with this premise alone and the fact that it is based off a true story, I think you kind of have to do it given the fact that these people were real, like the majority of the ones that they based this movie off of course. And the fact that when you try to make a fake movie, of course you're going to throw in that kind of comedy in there, though, so I think it's kind of needed for the film to move on, actually.
Yeah, it's an interesting take. Who knows? When the first trailer for The Town came out, I can't say I was terribly excited either, so who knows?
But what'd you think of that, though?
The Town?
Yeah.
Oh, I love that movie.
Yeah, I really liked it. Just the more I rewatch it, though, like, I don't really love it as much. Just, it is a really good film, though. Just, even for Jeremy Renner's role, I thought he was great, but only Golden Globe worthy at the most. I didn't really think his role was Oscar worthy, to say the least, but he was still probably the best performance in the film. For this trailer, though, back to Argo, I give it a 4 out of 5. Like, it's really got me intrigued, and also, I think Ben Affleck's really putting all his directing out into this film, because he really nailed down the 70s setting, especially because a lot of the color palette is bright within every shot, and just the overall setting and look to it looks great. I think this is really his big opportunity to show how much of a director he could be in the future.
Yeah, it definitely looks solid, I'll give it that.
Yeah. Alright, moving on from Argo, the third trailer that we're going to break down is the one for the NC-17 rated Killer Joe, and this has a really good cast by it. In fact, it premiered at Toronto International Film Festival last year. In fact, I have a friend that saw it and he really liked it, and it stars Matthew McConaughey as this slow yet... Actually, I wouldn't say slow, but he's a quiet and tough hitman who goes by the name of Killer Joe. And this young man, played by Emile Hirsch, hires him because he's a very huge debt. So he hires Killer Joe to murder his evil mother in order to collect the money and get out of his debt. But of course, many things left and right go wrong, and it really turns into a pressure cooker in the end. What did you think of this trailer?
Oh my god, I'm so excited. I'm so excited for this movie.
Yeah, same. I am too. Matthew McConaughey, I feel like he's really a good actor given the right kind of filmmaker that he's working with, or even just the right material in general. And I think this is really utilizing his talent to the full potential because if we've seen the past couple movies that he has done, The Lincoln Lawyer he was very good in, but before all that, he was really stuck in the rom-com phase where his talent was just pretty much the same, which he kind of just played a smug character in nearly every movie he starred in before that was a rom-com. But if you look at most of the movies that aren't falling into that demographic, he really has shown himself as a competent actor, and I think Killer Joe is going to be the film that really breaks him into being taken seriously.
Oh, definitely. Like, for me, that was Lincoln Fire. I love that movie.
Yeah, and moving on, also the cast is really good behind this. I really like that Emil Hirsch is starring in it because, if you want my opinion, he has not starred in a really good movie since Milk, actually. He's really kind of faded off for a little while, which he's really hasn't been doing too much. But all these movies that he's had upcoming, like since The Darkest Hour, bad memories of that though. But moving on, I think he's really starting to find his niche as well because he's still technically a young actor. Like, he's still in his mid-20s and he's really trying to find himself in Hollywood. Yet he looks very content in this role. And the supporting cast alongside him, I'm really excited to see Thomas Hayden Church's role in this because he's one of the most underrated actors working today too.
Yeah, he's awesome. Also, Juno Temple, who's also in Dark Knight Rises.
Oh yeah, forgot about her. I haven't really seen too many performances of hers though. Have you?
Yeah, I saw the movie Kaboom.
Never heard of that actually.
Don't watch it. It's terrible.
But how was her performance in it though?
She's good in it. I just hate that movie. It's like this pretentious, independent movie that takes like comedy, mystery, and sci-fi, and it's about like the sexual awakening of a bunch of kids.
Oh, weird.
Oh, it's stupid.
Well, moving to a lighter note though, this is directed by William Friedkin, and I know he's directed many famous movies from the early 70s to mid 80s or so, and the three biggest ones of course are The French Connection, which won several Oscars back in 1972 I think, and he also directed The Exorcist, of course, one of the most famous horror movies of all time, and he also directed this one called To Live and Die in LA, which starred Willem Dafoe. And have you seen any of those three movies?
I've seen The Exorcist.
Yeah, well, who hasn't? Well, I shouldn't have said that. I haven't seen The Exorcist.
Oh, twist.
Yeah. M. Night Shyamalan couldn't have predicted that right there.
I know. That was shocking.
Yeah. But I have seen The French Connection, and granted that I think A Clockwork Orange was a better movie than that, though, it's still a really good film, and Friedkin really knows how to build up tension in his movies. I've really seen that from even just scenes and clips of some of the movies that he has directed. And his last feature that he was really known for, even though it didn't do the greatest, was Ashley Judd starring Bug. And I haven't seen that movie, but I heard it was a real pressure cooker as well. I think he does really good when handling soul-building thrillers, and it looks like Killer Joe's definitely going to be one of those. But what's really got everyone intrigued is not just the cast for this movie, but it's also the fact that it's rated NC-17.
Oh, yeah, I was like, wow. When I found that out, I was shocked.
Well, I heard a lot of it has to do with the violence, and even just this poster that they released the week that the trailer went out earlier is one of this piece of fried chicken in the shape of Texas on there, and I heard that they do something in the movie with that ends up earning its NC-17 rating, actually.
That's what I heard that too, and I'm like, when I heard about that scene, I know what happened.
Yeah. So I just hope I don't find out about
I was actually talking to Brand. Yeah, I was talking to Brand, and he was like, I bet you don't want to see the movie now. I was like, you kidding me?
Yeah, you kidding? It's NC-17. That's enough to get you intrigued.
I know, exactly.
Yeah, overall, I give this trailer a strong 4.5 out of 5. It was cut very well, and the cast was really good so far. And I think this is really going to put William Friedkin back on the map because he just really hasn't directed that many movies in the past decade. And I'm really anticipating this one, like, not only for its NC-17 rating and the cast, but I really love a good, slow-building pressure cooker thriller. So what would you give it? Same grade?
Honestly, I'm going to give it a 5.
Wow.
I mean, I love the trailer. I love dark comedies, and this looks like the darkest.
You know, that's something I forgot to touch up upon because there was actually a lot of humor in the trailer, too.
Yeah, especially at the end with Matthew McConaughey. He's just, like, smells heavenly, and you see, like, all of them, like, they're all, like, sitting at the table, and they're all, like, bloody and everything.
Yeah. You see, that's one thing that I've never really seen that McConaughey can do until I've looked past a couple of his movies that he's done in the past, in which he's a good actor, actually, when it comes to balancing both the drama and comedy.
Yeah.
Alright, moving on to the last trailer. This one released on Friday, and it originally had these two promos that released earlier in the week, but they weren't all that good if you ask me. And it's for the Will Ferrell, Zach Galifianakis starring comedy, The Campaign, which is about these two politicians who are running for a spot in, it's either their town or they're running for a seat in Congress or something like that. But it's really just that Will Ferrell and Zach Galifianakis going against each other, and it's from the director of the first two Meet the Parents movies and Dinner for Schmucks, Jay Roach. And he hasn't really been that successful as of late, except for several HBO movies he's made in the past few years. But what did you think of this trailer?
Well, I didn't like the promos, like, at all.
Yeah, same thing. I thought those promos were awful. I know that they were cheaply made, just they didn't really use a lot of full comedic effect that they could have.
Yeah, that being said, I actually thought the trailer was really funny.
Yeah, I'll admit, the trailer was pretty funny, and I like the cast that's got working for it too, but not just for Will Ferrell and Zach Galifianakis, but it's got decent players in the supporting category too, even though the only one that they really show a lot of is Jason Sudeikis, but he's really a comedic actor of this generation that I've really grown upon because he's definitely shown to be a very funny actor as of late, and I think his time on SNL really builds off of that too. And I'm really looking forward to this movie, too. Like, I really wasn't anticipating the trailer after seeing those promos, but there were parts in that trailer that really amused me. Like, it made me chuckle because I really like Will Ferrell and Zach Galifianakis. I don't think Galifianakis has made that many good films since The Hangover. Like, he's really been typecast since, and I think he's going to be forever in that position. And Will Ferrell, I always like him doing, like, a part George W. Bush impression, especially for this kind of project. Essentially, this movie is really Will Ferrell doing a loose George W. Bush impression going against Zach Galifianakis doing his Seth Galifianakis character for Funny or Die.
Yeah, if this, like, takes, for Will Ferrell, if this takes, like, his George W. Bush impression, mix it with Ron Burgundy, it would be perfect.
Yeah, that's kind of the vibe that I'm getting from the trailer, too. Especially, like, Will Ferrell looks like he's definitely in his element because it looks like this is a character that he's wanted to play in a feature movie for a while. And Zach Galifianakis is pretty much doing his usual comedic shtick of kind of being the dummy, but also saying very weird yet funny things at the same time. I think that as a straightforward comedy, this does look decent. However, I just don't want to be disappointed because Jay Roach hasn't had a great track record as of late for the comedies he has directed. But overall, the trailer has gotten me intrigued, and to say the least, I'm looking forward to it. Just, I don't think it's going to be anything great, but it's going to be satisfying for what it's promoting, hopefully. So I think I'd give it a solid 3.5 out of 5.
Yeah, I'd go same, 3.5. Because there was some where I was like, some jokes, but others, I didn't really find the whole punching the baby thing that to be...
You know, that's something that's been mixing people who've seen the trailer as well, though, too.
I mean, if people get offended by that, then they're stupid, but, like, I just didn't find it that funny.
Yeah. Like, that's the one problem with comedy these days is that they take things too seriously, especially earlier this week that had to do with the Thor line from the Avengers of how the Adoptees group is trying to boycott the film's line from being in the final DVD and Blu-ray version, which I'm just going, give me a break.
That's so stupid. Like, why?
Yeah, like, it just really shows how there are some people in this world that they just don't really have a strong sense of humor, that they're so sensitive to one joke that they have to take such huge offense to it. And this is just really going to the lines of idiocracy, if you ask me.
The thing that I find hilarious, like, hilariously ironic, is the fact that they're cool with tons of people dying, including probably children, in, like, terrible explosions, like city destruction, but... a joke about adoption? No way.
Yeah. And I'm sure that there were probably jokes in the movie that I don't remember as well, but they were probably even worse than that they could have taken offense to, but of course they have to take one of the best lines in the film, and they just make a completely big deal of it, where they just go and bitch about it. I'm really ashamed about that.
Yeah, oh my god. The Avengers is number 30 in the IMDb 250.
I wouldn't say it deserves to be that high.
I don't think it deserves to be. I think The Gray should be higher.
Well, you just praise about The Gray all the time, so no surprise.
I'm the one-man army when it comes to that.
You and Liam. Well, Joe Carnahan's got your back too, so you have an army of 3 then.
And Liam Neeson counts as 2 people.
Yeah. Alright, now we're moving on to the last segment. Like, usually we'd have movies to review this weekend, but given the only release was Dark Shadows, and I saw it and Teddy didn't, which this wasn't really a movie that we'd really want to talk about anyway, because it's just one that's kind of there. Like, I'm not saying it as a Tim Burton hater or anything, because I haven't really seen many of his movies. I've seen a few of them. I've really liked some. Didn't like Alice in Wonderland. But moving on to the first edition of the Film Freak Sneak Peek segment, in which, with the Cannes Film Festival coming up very fast, it starts this Wednesday with Moonrise Kingdom opening the festival. We're going to break down several of the biggest movies that will be premiering there, some for the Palme d'Or and others in the Un Certain Regard category, and also ones that are very anticipated later this year as independent movies, but will be starting at other film festivals later this year. So we're going to start with several that are going to be premiering at Cannes, and the first one we're going to preview is Moonrise Kingdom. Now, I am a big Wes Anderson fan, in fact, a very recent Wes Anderson fan too, because I didn't really get into his movies until mid-January or so, where I did a week-long marathon of watching all of his movies past, and I'm really glad I did that because he's one of my top 10 favorite directors as of now. And with the Royal Tenenbaums being my favorite, the Darjeeling Limited being his most underrated without a doubt, I've really gotten into his films, and the fact that he's returning for the first time in, I don't know, maybe 5 years or so with a non-animated Wes Anderson film, I'm really looking forward to this, especially with the fact that it does have his most mainstream cast with names like Bruce Willis and Edward Norton mixed in there, but he's also retaining his classic favorites like Bill Murray and Jason Schwartzman, for instance. I really think this looks good. What do you think?
Before I saw the trailer, before I became a fan of Wes Anderson, when I first saw it, I just like, I was like, this just looks like a hipster movie for hipsters.
Yeah, well, Wes Anderson's movies can always be coined as hipster movies, but I always find them so much more than that.
Yeah, and then I watched Rushmore, and that changed my perspective like, entirely. That movie's like in my top 30 of all time. I love that movie.
Yeah, for some reason, I don't enjoy that one as much, but also because I think I took it more as a straightforward comedy, because, like, that's what most of Wes Anderson movies sometimes are. In fact, I'm going to take that back, actually. None of his movies are actually straight-up comedies, except for Fantastic Mr. Fox. All of them are really ones that blend together very witty and dry senses of humor in their comedy, but they also mix together some very serious but well-executed drama in between, too, and that's what his movies do so well that not many other dramedy filmmakers these days can do.
Yeah, and I'm just I'm so excited for this movie. Like, I watched the trailer again, and I'm absolutely pumped.
Yeah. The one thing that does lean it back just a little, in fact, I won't even call it a nitpick, but also for the fact that the two young lead stars in it, this is their first time acting, if I'm right. But then again, they're alongside all these other great actors, and that Wes Anderson just has his classic style going around there with, like, the primary color palette and the very odd and offbeat sense of humor that the trailer carries off. Essentially, the trailer alone for this movie just goes, you can picture in the first few seconds, oh, got it, Wes Anderson movie.
Yeah, exactly. And, I mean, in the trailer, I liked the kids in the trailer.
Yeah, I did too. The only one flaw that you can have going into the movie is that they're first-time actors, but they already sold me alone the trailer. I think Wes Anderson works great with actors, especially.
Yeah, I'm very excited for that movie. It comes out soon. I hope it comes to a theater near me.
Yeah, I hope so too, because if I'm right, it's only going to start in its New York and LA limited release at first, and then it's going to expand weekend by weekend or so. However, no matter what, when this movie finally comes around, I'm going to be one of the first ones to buy the ticket to wherever it releases near me, because I have been waiting for this movie for a while. However, I have been avoiding the clips because, like every Wes Anderson movie I have seen, I've only seen the trailer for it, and I think I did it just right, because if I saw any clips, that might have spoiled some of the best parts of the film. So have you taken a similar approach to that before too?
I watched one of the clips for this movie.
And did it live up to the so-called hype, I guess?
I thought it was hilarious, so...
Well, that's good to hear.
It was basically like Jason Schwartzman being crazy.
Oh, yeah, I love seeing Jason Schwartzman be crazy. He does that better than almost anyone in a Wes Anderson movie. Well, not Bill Murray. Nobody can do Wes Anderson acting better than Bill Murray, if you ask me.
Yeah, I concur.
Yeah. Alright, so that's open in the Cannes Film Festival, and that's really going to set the stage for the movie's release on May 25th later this month, and that's really going to set the stage for people's expected reactions as well. But moving on to the next film that we're going to preview, and which is also being shown at Cannes, is David Cronenberg's Cosmopolis.
Now, I've only seen one other David Cronenberg.
And you said
movie.
It was
Crash.
Yes.
Yeah, I know. Here that's like his craziest. And it's
Oh, I don't think you
that's
can say crazy is just it. I think after you watch films like The Brood, Scanners, and Videodrome, films that I haven't seen yet but really want to, I think you'd really have to reinterpret the word crazy after that.
that's I will definitely get to those like this year.
Yeah, I really want to as well. Like, hopefully even before Cosmopolis releases, because David Cronenberg's one of those few filmmakers alive even today that he hasn't really done it in a while. With the past few movies he has made, which are Eastern Promises and A History of Violence, which are very, very good movies, if you ask me. And they both showcase two of Viggo Mortensen's greatest performances too.
See,
However,
those are two that are like on my must-watch list. I really want to see those.
yeah, those are two you really need to watch because Cronenberg's classic style, at first, what he was known for in the late 70s and 80s, is that he literally made his own genre called the body horror genre, in which they're very graphic horror movies, but a lot of the horror comes from the fact that a lot of the horror moments and very graphic detail involve characters' bodies, which these very weird things happen to them. And Cronenberg's never afraid to make things too graphic. Like, if you see something happen to a character, and if you've been familiar with his past work, and you just see what happens to them in, like, either just the blood, guts, or whatever that's shown that Cronenberg does, you just go, yeah, I could picture it's a Cronenberg movie, so, yeah, that could have happened, of course.
Yep. And, like, even in the trailer, like, the trailer alone is just nuts.
Yeah, it is.
Like, they actually show the trailer for it during the Avengers.
Interesting.
And everyone was like, whoa, that's a lot for a trailer.
And the one thing that I also find interesting is the fact that you gave me the plot synopsis for the film, and it's about him trying to get a haircut in the middle of the night in New York City, but it like turns into a nighttime odyssey through like the weirdest areas, from what I'm aware of.
Yep, and he like ends up shooting his own hand. It's crazy. It's nuts.
Well, that reminds me of Videodrome too. Actually, there was a scene in that where actually I'm not going to spoil it. Never mind. That's a big scene right there. Like I haven't even seen the movie, but I've seen that scene alone, and it's one that I really don't want to spoil, especially for the fact that you haven't seen the film.
Yeah, I really want to. Ooh, there's a Criterion. I need to see that movie now.
For what?
For Videodrome.
All right, yeah, that's actually a Criterion I've wanted to buy for a while. Like I blind buy almost all of my Criterions, and I've been satisfied with all of them so far.
Yep, I blind bought Great Dictator.
Nice. Alright, so moving on now from crazy Cronenberg, we move on to another film that's going to be holding its premiere at Cannes. And in fact, we have a friend that already saw this too, Jorge Zeliandia. We Want Your Time Machine Secrets, by the way.
Yeah, exactly.
But this movie, though, it's written and directed by Andrew Dominik, and he's only directed 2 feature-length movies before, if I'm right, but they're both very critically acclaimed one. He directed Eric Bana in Chopper, which is what really put Eric Bana on the scene in acting, as it was really a performance that you don't really see from Eric Bana that much more often either. And he also wrote and directed The Assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford, which earned Casey Affleck a Best Supporting Actor nomination. However, the movie itself was mixed on people due to how long it was, too, though. But Dominik received more praise for his filmmaking for that. And for this movie, it's based on a 1970s novel about mob enforcers in Boston during that time period. And it stars Brad Pitt, Ray Liotta, Richard Jenkins, and so many more names. What do you think of this?
Oh, I'm so excited.
And it's not just because it's set in Boston, right?
Oh, that's a big reason, but I mean, the image of Brad Pitt holding the shotgun, it looks really gritty and awesome.
Yeah, they did a great job in making him look like a mob enforcer, too.
Yeah, and did you see the clip that they released?
Yeah, I did, actually. They released a clip yesterday, if I'm right, for the movie, and especially for its release that's coming up really quick at Cannes. And I think it really sets the stage, and I really like the way Dominik filmed the scene, which almost all the scene was in one take, too, and you really don't see much either.
I think the entire scene was actually one take.
Oh yeah, it was. I think they cut it right at the end. I think they cut it right at the end, if I'm right.
Yeah, and they didn't show like any of the violence that was happening in the scene. I really liked how it reminded me of Goodfellas.
Yeah, same thing. It did for me too. And once again, that's not that. Oh, part of it had to do with the fact that Ray Liotta was in it.
Yeah, it was kind of like Goodfellas mixed with The Departed.
Yeah, what I really liked about that clip that they showed alone, though, is because you really picture in your mind at what's happening because they don't show anything. I really like when a filmmaker does that because there's some points when certain filmmakers in this generation that they try to show just too much where it literally turns into parody in terms of how much blood or guts that they're showing in a scene where a lot of violence is happening. But I really like that Dominic took that approach in that one clip alone.
I do hear from early reactions that the violence starts to escalate, like, into, like, more lingering.
So it's more of it's kind of a pressure cooker, and then the violence just breaks out full form. Then, right?
I think so.
All right, that's interesting.
I'm hearing it's very dark, brutal.
Yeah, I'm expecting that from a mob movie, of course, though too.
Yeah, Jorge told me with his time machine.
All right, now moving on to the fourth movie that we have on our list, another one that will be at Cannes, but it's not competing. I think it's actually competing for the Palme d'Or, or it could be for the Un Certain Regard category. Like, correct me if you want for that, but that is for Jeff Nichols' Mud. And the reason I'm really looking forward to this, though, is because he wrote and directed one of my absolute favorite movies from 2011, Take Shelter, which, might I add, was extremely snubbed for several Oscars, most notably Michael Shannon for Best Actor. And they released the first clip for this movie earlier today, too. And this one's actually longer than Take Shelter is, too. It's like 2 hours and 15 minutes from what I hear. But it centers on these two boys that find this man, played by Matthew McConaughey. I guess his name goes by Mud or something like that. And he's been living near this lake and forest for a long time on his own. Apparently something happened to his life that really made him into that. And these two boys want to turn him for the better by keeping these bounty hunters away that are chasing after him. And also want to get him back together with his old love, who's played by Reese Witherspoon.
Yeah, that sounds very interesting.
Yo, so did you see the first clip yet or not?
I saw, like, 30 seconds of it.
Alright, well, Jeff Nichols, he's only made 3 movies now to his credit. His other one was Shotgun Stories besides Take Shelter. And given that I love Take Shelter so much, I'm really looking forward to this movie a lot, especially because this is yet another movie coming up later this year that stars Matthew McConaughey, and it looks like it's really going to boost up his acting numbers, too.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited. I love, like, when Matthew McConaughey goes dark, so hopefully that happens in this movie.
I don't think you ever said what your thoughts on The Lincoln Lawyer were.
Oh, I love that. It's underrated.
Yeah, and I think that's Matthew McConaughey's best performance from what I've seen, too.
Yeah, Killer Joe could top that, though.
You know, in fact, that's our next movie on our list, too.
Yeah, but before we get into that, I just want to quickly say, Take Shelter is amazing, and it's underrated as hell.
Thank you for saying that.
It's so good.
Yeah. And now moving on to what I said earlier, Killer Joe. Now, we did break down the trailer for this movie, and we kind of said our main thoughts for it, so I guess we'll reiterate them again. I think it looks great, of course. It looks like one of those great and like old school, slow building, pressure cooking thrillers. And the fact that Matthew McConaughey's playing a very reserved yet tough character is what really intrigues me. But also for the fact that it has a great supporting cast backing him up. I think this could be a great movie, and not just because of its NC-17 rating, of course, but that intrigues me for how graphic that this movie could be. So I'm really looking forward to it, of course.
I hear that the play that it's based off is
that's one thing that I forgot to bring up. It is based off of a play. And in fact, the person who
well.
wrote the play also adapted it for the big screen, too.
Yeah, so I'm very excited. The fact that I know what happens, I'm not going to say what happens.
Yeah,
what happens
please don't.
With the KFC is shocking and, like, disgusting, but awesome.
Yeah.
And what I hear, like, Matthew McConaughey is crazy in the scene. So, I'm excited.
Yeah, in fact, the one friend that I do have that saw that movie back at its TIFF premiere last year, he in fact said that he still hasn't ate KFC up till this day since seeing the film.
I feel like after seeing that movie, I'm going to purposely go to KFC.
Yeah, I might do that too.
And get like 5 buckets of them and eat them in the grossest way possible.
Yeah, in fact, I know for the fact because this is going to be one of those movies that I might have to drive down to San Diego to see, but given the fact that back where I live, I have a KFC that's like a 5-minute drive away from there, I might as well just do that when I get home then.
Unfortunately, since it's NC-17, I'm going to have trouble seeing it, I did with the game.
Let's just hope none of the theater owners that might be showing this movie heard that then.
Yeah, although I saw it, I snuck into Shame.
And that was quite an experience.
Hopefully this plays in like more theaters.
Yeah, I hope
Uh,
so too, because that's one problem. Like, even this movie is accepting its NC-17 rating as well, just like Shame did. And the one problem that you have when you do that, though, is that you really have a limited audience in the end, because most NC-17 movies don't really go far, even in a limited release. But I'm hoping that this one gets the better of it, though.
yeah, hopefully it's got the cast.
Oh yeah, it's
The,
definitely got the cast. Like even more than just Shame, which the only two big names that that movie really had were Michael Fassbender and Carey Mulligan. At least
yeah.
this one, though, it has at least 4 or 5 big names, though.
Speaking of shame, I just thought of another independent movie we could talk about.
What's that?
12 Years a Slave.
Oh yeah, I forgot that. Like that could be our 10th one then, of course. Yeah, that
Yeah.
this is Steve McQueen's follow up to Shame, of course, and I'm really looking forward to it because, in fact, I don't really know too much about this movie except for the fact that Steve McQueen is behind the camera for it, and also that he got Michael Fassbender to star in it again. But I think Brad Pitt is the lead star, in it, if I'm right, isn't he?
No, I think she would tell you whatever his name
Oh,
is.
him, right. Wow, I really screwed that up. That
I
guy's a
think they're
good
just
actor,
like the
actually,
three.
too. Just the problem with Ejiofor is that some of the mainstream movies he starred in really haven't utilized his talent. Like 2012 in Salt, for instance, he was really hammed down for those two roles.
2012 sucks.
Well, almost every one of Roland Emmerich's movies sucks, so we can agree on that.
I don't even. Do you like Independence Day?
Yeah, I kind of like it. Like that's my lone exception. Like it's cheesy as all hell, but I still enjoy it though.
See, I hate that movie.
Well, contradiction meet.
I hate it.
All right, well, moving on, 12 Years a Slave, that's happening. Just we don't really know when that's gonna premiere. Most likely, it'll probably be at TIFF, but from what I heard, they still haven't started shooting yet, so it will most likely
Oh,
be next year is when it'll roll around.
yeah.
But otherwise, moving on to we have 4 more left. The next one that we have is The Beast of the Southern Wild, and I think you can do a better job at describing this movie than I can.
It's like set. What I got from it was I think it was set like during, like after Trina.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking too, because there were floodwaters everywhere too.
Yeah, and
But then again, it kind of had a Midwestern vibe to it too, from the landscape of it.
yeah, and I think it's set down in New Orleans. And basically it's focusing on this little girl, and I think it like goes into her imagination.
Yeah, because
And
it's really even though it looks like a independent movie, it's really more of a fantasy driven one though too.
and I think it looks incredible.
Yeah, the main plot from what I heard of it is that like amidst all these things happening in her life, like especially the environment has a lot to do with it too, in which she's told by this one man, I think it's her father, but I don't want to confirm that it is because I'm not fully sure of that. But she goes on this quest in order to find her long lost mother, and she also takes on these creatures too, which I don't remember what they're called, but that really sets up a fantasy scope to this movie that not many other independent movies have really had the balls to. The first time I saw the trailer, I just went, it looks like a typical Sundance movie. Like, that's what I was getting from the plot. But then I continued to rewatch it, and I realized that this movie might have a lot more than it really looks like it does have from a first viewing. I feel like it's one that's really going to build upon repeated viewings because it has a certain scope, as I said, that not many other independent movies really have. And I think the fantasy aspect to it is really what's going to set it apart from other independent movies that released this year.
Yeah, and the little girl, I can't pronounce her name for the life of me, but I think I will for humorous purposes.
Go ahead, then.
She looks like she's going to be she looks great in the movie, and I usually hate children actors. Okay, I'm going to try and pronounce her name. Get ready.
All right.
Cuban Jean Hain Wallace.
Hey, that was a good attempt, though.
That was, I know. I think it's like Cuban Jane.
Yeah. Alright, well, that movie's happening, The Beast of the Southern Wild. In fact, it premiered at Sundance Film Festival either earlier this year or the year before. I don't remember which one offhand, but once again, you can correct us on that. But I'm intrigued by it because I've seen the trailer several times, and it looks like it's going to be a very different independent movie, which I always like. But moving on to the next one, which this is not going to be at Cannes, but it's set to be possibly at either Venice or most likely Toronto later this year, and that is Paul Thomas Anderson's long-awaited The Master.
I'm very excited.
Yeah, as am I. I'm a big Paul Thomas Anderson fan, despite the fact that I haven't seen Hard Eight or Punch Drunk Love. But I have been waiting so long since There'll Be Blood for him to make another movie. This has been a 5 year hiatus. He has been off from filmmaking. In fact, I think actually he's taken a long time to develop The Master because this movie has its own religion that is thrown into the mix too, and it even caused controversy in pre-production because, in fact, I heard it had aspects similar to Scientology, which really stirred up a debate.
Hmm. Now, I'm not. I usually hate seeing like religion portrayed in
But
films.
given that it's Paul Thomas Anderson, I think he's a director that's perfectly capable of executing it in a very human manner, though.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was gonna say. He it he it just looks everything just looks perfect so far.
Yeah, I don't even think they really released any set photos either. I think they leaked some at one point, but they got removed. There isn't a trailer yet either, but it is confirmed for a limited release date in October this year. And I'm really looking forward to it because I've been waiting so long, as I said, for Paul Thomas Anderson to come out with another movie because he's essentially a present-day Kubrick in a way because he kind of spaces out his movies a lot now. Like, he made several in his early days, which were Hard Eight, Boogie Nights, and Magnolia, but then he took about 4 years or so with Punch Drunk Love, and then another five with There Will Be Blood, and now another five with The Master. So, like, I kind of like how he spaces out his projects. Like, he doesn't want to rush anything, just at the same time, it really builds up your anticipation the longer it takes for a director to release a long-awaited film.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest here. The only one I've seen is There Will Be Blood.
Well, I'll give you your homework then. Watch the rest of them.
I will.
Alright, because I already got homework from Mark Ellis from the Schmoes Know to watch Tim Burton's Batman movies before The Dark Knight Rises, so I'm going to get a start on that soon so I don't forget, like, to try to do it the night before The Dark Knight Rises releases.
And I've given you plenty of homework.
Yeah, I know, like, especially Charlie Chaplin-related work.
Oh, people tell me I'm a Chaplin whore.
Well, we've definitely regarded that, though.
Yep.
Alright, now moving on, what better to end this sneak peek with the biggest independent movies releasing this year than 2-1 starring our favorite man, Ryan Goss.
God, I love Ryan Gosling.
And the first one that we're going to kick off with is Derek Schoenfranch's The Place Beyond the Pines, which this is Ryan Gosling reteaming with Derek Schoenfranch, who directed him, and Michelle Williams in Blue Valentine, a movie that I have not seen, but I heard is very good, though.
See, I recently watched it for the first time and loved the hell out of it.
Yeah, it depresses you, though, doesn't it?
It's very sad, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I've heard from several people that have seen it. But this is a very different film compared to Blue Valentine, and it has a bigger cast to add on, too. There's Ryan Gosling in the lead, but then there's Eva Mendes, Bradley Cooper, I think, is in it, but in a much different role than you'd ever really perceive him to be. And I don't really know the rest of the people there. Then again, I haven't looked at the cast for this movie in a while. But what really has gotten me intrigued for this movie, though, is the fact that Sean Franz ended up calling it a crossbreed between The Godfather and The Deer Hunter, which are two very good movies. Like, I think The Godfather is slightly overrated, but that's given that I've only seen it once, of course, though. But The Deer Hunter is one of my all-time favorite films. And the plot for this movie is very interesting. Ryan Gosling plays a motorcycle stunt rider, if I'm right, and he has to commit this crime in order to save his family or something like that, but he's also being looked under the eye by this sneaky cop-turned-politician played by Bradley Cooper. And they released only one photo of this, but Ryan Gosling really netted down the look of like one of today's extreme sports athletes very well. And the premise alone and the fact that Sean Franz made that comparison between those two aforementioned films that I said before, I'm really intrigued by this film.
Yeah, I am too. I will admit, when I first heard this, I was like, wait, is this Drive 2?
Yeah, I know. That's what I was thinking at first as well.
Yeah, it's...
Drive on a motorcycle.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, what is this? It's Drive 2. But I'm starting to get more intrigued. I didn't realize it was from the director of Blue Valentine until, like, recently, and I love Blue Valentine.
Yeah, so you're really looking forward to his follow-up, then?
Yep.
As am I, and there's another bit of homework for me to do. Watch Blue Valentine. You see, I have so much homework to do just from doing this with you.
I've got some homework to do as well. I haven't seen
so
The Godfather.
we'll call it even, though. We got a stalemate on each other now.
Yeah, pretty much. I have to see most Wes Anderson movies, The Godfather,
You've never seen The Godfather?
Nope.
Wow.
Well, you've never seen Charlie Chaplin, sir.
Here we go again. All right, let's move on from that because we've brought up Chaplin a lot, which no surprise really. But our last independent film that we're gonna discuss, which this doesn't have a given release date yet, but a lot of people are speculating that is gonna be premiering at TIFF later this year, and that is Nicholas Winding Refn's Only God Forgives, a movie that you have been screaming about, even just it in being in production right now.
I am losing my mind.
Yeah, and by the way, if you haven't known already, Teddy's a big Refn fan too.
Yeah, I'm big Refn. I mean, Drive is like in my top 30 of all time now. Like I love Drive so much. Bronson is amazing. Valhalla Rising is really good. I don't love it. Like I watched it once and I'll ever watch it again.
Yeah.
The Pusher trilogy is incredible, though.
Yeah, that's also on my watch list, is the Pusher trilogy.
You really have a lot to watch.
Yeah, let's just... I said we have a stalemate, though. We'll discuss this later.
Yeah, that's true.
Alright, well, I'm really looking forward to this movie, of course. Like, I've only seen Drive once, which was all the way back at Comic-Con last year, and I really want to see it again, of course. Just, I don't know, like, I should just slap myself for not seeing it a second or third time afterwards. But I really love the movie. It was my second favorite movie of last year, The Descendants being number one because I'm a diehard Alexander Payne fan. But moving on to Only God Forgives, I really like the premise of this. Like, he plays a regular man in his 30s, if I'm right, but he's had a tragedy in his family where his brother died, and his mother orders him to avenge his death. That's the only thing that they've given away on this film. But Ryan Gosling, I remember him quoting saying that the script for this movie was one of the strangest things he's ever read, and it only gets stranger the longer it goes on for.
Yeah, basically, it's like he's a gangster in Thailand.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and his brother gets killed by this police officer, and he has to get revenge, and it's like involves like Thai boxing.
Muay Thai is what they call it, and in fact, Ryan Gosling trained for that
super
too.
Hardcore. And then I hear Refn said it's got like all of the violence that had to be cut out of Drive.
Oh wow, interesting.
Yeah.
So then he's promising that it's going to be more graphic than Drive, so that would be very interesting then.
The plot sounds like more brutal.
Yeah, I know. Like I think that the movie has a very simple setup, but given that Refn has such a layered direction compared to other filmmakers these days, in which he really retains a lot of classic old school vibes within the things that he tries to convey. And that's what I'm really intrigued by, especially because he netted that down perfectly in Drive. And just from a movie that has a premise like this, even though it does sound simple, it's going to be something much more from what I've been hearing. And just, do you remember seeing that first photo that they did release of Gosling's face just being beat all to hell?
That made me like shit pants. I was like, oh my god, this movie's coming out.
Yeah, we just don't know when, though. It doesn't have a given release, but it's bound to release sometime later this year as an Oscar contender for sure, because Refn ended up, he showed Drive at Cannes, first last year, and then he showed at Comic-Con, which was the second audience, and I think then Venice and then Toronto were the next ones to get it, too. So I feel like it's going to be one of those late 2012 releases, the way it's building up. But I'm really excited for it because I know I have a lot more of Winding Refn's movies to see, but I absolutely love Drive, and I loved Ryan Gosling's performance in this. I don't think they're going to disappoint at all with this.
No, I know it's in post-production, so...
Oh, okay. So that means it could be ready by Venice, then.
Yeah, just I don't know whatever stage they're at, and plus it got picked up by the Weinstein, or however you pronounce his name.
Oh, who else? The guy that rules Hollywood.
Yeah, and so, like, he loves to hoard his movies out by Oscar time.
Yeah, I know. You see, that's one problem that I've had with him, Phil, like, especially with how much he hoarded out the Bully campaign, which I thought is one of the most overrated and overhyped movies of this year, that they just, I think they really overdid the campaign for that. Like, of course, if you see me talk about this, like, I'm totally for the Stop Bullying campaign, but that's the only thing that movie did was just, it showcased the problem, yet it did nothing more with it.
Yeah, exactly. I really didn't like Bully.
Yeah, and I think the Golden Globes earlier this year that involved Weinstein, which all his movies that he backed basically dominated with like Meryl Streep even just winning the Oscar and everything, and like I'm getting kind of sick of how people call him like the powerhouse, or like they gave him some other nickname that I don't remember from earlier this year at award shows, which I just think that he has too much of a threshold over Hollywood, actually.
He doesn't really do anything. He just throws his money at good movies.
Well, at least we can give that he picks the good ones, yet he just whores them out in campaigns, though, just for the promotional marketing.
Well, he did choose Bully.
Yeah. Which, given, I think that no matter what, even just him, I could have seen another financier, though, that they would have backed that movie and probably promoted it the same way, yet just not as much as he would have, though.
Oh, the whole friggin' permission slip thing that they were doing?
Oh, yeah, I didn't like that either.
So stupid.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, that brings us to the end to the first episode of the Film Freaks podcast, as we covered the biggest news to have released the first week, latest trailers, and a big preview of the latest updates on big independent movies coming out later this year, especially for the ones that will be shown at Cannes Film Festival, which starts this Wednesday, May 16th. Really looking forward to the reaction for several of the movies that are premiering there, except Madagascar 3, because that, I don't know what it's doing there, to say the least.
That's so weird, that it's like, I mean, you hear it's like, oh yeah, what's premiering there? Cosmopolis, Moonrise Kingdom, Killing Them Softly, Madagascar 3.
Well, then again, there's always a mainstream movie that's thrown in every year there, though. Like, Pirates of the Caribbean 4 was the one last year.
I forgot that movie existed.
Yeah, in fact, that was the first time I talked about the movie, and I don't even remember.
I really didn't like that movie.
Yeah, like, the more I thought about it, I didn't really like it all that much either. But otherwise, besides all this, that brings us to the end of this first episode. Next week, on the second episode, I'm going to be bringing on board Chris Stuckman as we're going to review Battleship, and we're also going to cover, of course, the biggest news to release in the past week, and also the latest trailers too. So, Teddy, tell us, where can we find you on YouTube and so forth?
Well, you can find me on my channel, Reviews by Ted, where I barely make videos, and
Hey, but the summer's coming up. That's always going to open doors for that.
Yeah, that's true, and I my opinions are definitely
different sometimes.
Different. Yeah, but you can find me there, Reviews by Ted. You can find me on Facebook, even though I probably won't accept your friend request. Just saying.
You need to have a lot of mutual friends, is my guess.
Yeah, pretty much.
Alright, well, also, you can find me, of course, Tyler, at CaliCriticReviews on YouTube. You can also find my blog, CaliCriticsCorner.blogspot.com. You can follow me on Twitter, at CaliCritic, and also there's my Facebook page, Tyler Critic, at CaliCritic, well, not Tyler at CaliCriticReviews, Tyler/CaliCriticReviews, so forth. So that does it for the first episode of the Film Freaks podcast. Make sure to leave your thoughts on the comments below of the stuff that we covered. Share your thoughts on the biggest independent movies coming up later this year. And also, we're going to be organizing guests for the next month's episodes, hopefully, but we have the guest list set for the rest of this month, so you can look forward to future episodes of the Film Freaks podcast. I'm Tyler from CaliCriticReviews, your host.
I'm Ted from Reviews by Ted.
And we will see you guys next time. Goodbye.
See ya.